So the differences between being approved for disability and being approved for the PIA or the ERB, early retirement benefits, it can be substantial, but I'm not going to say thousands of dollars, but it could probably be, a couple hundred or more a month, which that becomes substantial, over the course of your life. And is it in your best interest? Let's say that you're a 62-year-old and you called us up and you said, "Yeah, I've talked to Social Security and I've applied for early retirement. Should be starting next month. I turn 62 next month. Can you help me out with my disability claim though?" And I'm like, "Well, when did you become disabled?" I haven't been working for a couple of years now. My condition was so hard. So there are going to be back pay, and keep in mind that, full disclosure, we are a for-profit firm. I pay people to process cases, and we expect a fee if we do win your disability case. And so if you are drawing or about to draw early retirement benefits, there, however long it's going to take us to win your case, during that time, you would still be amassing some back pay. But since that you're getting a monthly ERB benefit, early retirement benefit, that back pay is going to be minuscule to somebody who is, 52, and it takes 10 months. All that money, they haven't gotten anything. So all that money is in their retroactive benefits. And that's where our fee comes from.
Yeah.
We can only receive a fee if there are retroactive benefits. So, it took 10 months to get you approved, and your monthly benefit amount is $1,000. Therefore, they owe you $10,000 of back benefits, and our fee is 25% of that. So we made, $2,500, and you get the $7,500, and then of course you get all of your monthly benefits. We don't get any of that. So we have, a little bit of a problem. I'm not going to say it's a huge insurmountable problem, but we do have a problem with somebody who's drawing early retirement benefits, in that they're not going to amass a huge amount of back pay, because they're getting those benefits a month. But seeing that there's a difference, so Social Security disability is higher than Social Security benefits, there is going to be a difference. And it can be as small as it's $50 a month. And so it took 10 months to win your case, and your back pay is $500 because you've been getting early retirement benefits. And so, a quarter of $500 is what, a $1.25 or something like that. Not great at math, but that would be our fee. And so if you've ever wondered, if you've called us up and you're 63 or 62 and you're getting or about to get early retirement benefits, if you've ever wondered if we ask about that, it is a material consideration that we have to make, and that we can likely help you if the medical evidence is pretty clear. Certainly if you've got a terminal condition, that's not even going to come up because I'm going to take your case. Will I work for free? Yeah, in that case, we do it 40 or 50 times a year. I mean, it is what it is. I think it's the right thing to do. However, if you have a case that's going to really take a lot of time, and there's just very little money in it for my peeps, and I know I sound greedy saying that, but I have to pay my people no matter what. Every week, if I make $0 in a week, I still have to pay all of my employees. I mean, that's it's business 101. And I'm not complaining about it, but it's just a fact. And so it is a consideration if you're on early retirement benefits, especially if you're 64 already and you've been drawing them for 2 years. When did you become disabled? Well, last year. Okay, well, there's definitely going to be just a really little difference between the ERB benefits that you've been drawing and then disability benefits if I'm able to get you approved. I might take the case, but I might not. So that is the big consideration. And of course, all firms are going to be that way. It's not just disability consulting. everybody's going to be like that. It's kind of like federal court cases. The first thing that attorneys do when we've referred a federal case to them is they call the claimant. Do you have any debt? Do you have any IRS outstanding? Do you have child support debt? Do you have a student loan? Because if they have any of those and the attorney wins at federal district court, guess what? All the money that they owe goes into that before anything can be released to the attorney. And they're like, I'm not going to take a case, and spend 20 hours and I can't make a dime at it. So that's the first thing that they'll ask, do you have any outstanding federal debt? And it's the same with us and ERBs. Again, in a lot of cases we take them, but if you've wondered why we ask that, that's what it is. But the big difference, the big thing that I want to point out is that there's a difference in retirement benefits and disability benefits. If you've ever gotten like your statements, they used to send them all the time in the mail. They came on like newspaper paper, and I think they just email them to you now. At least I get an email once a year, which is, if you retire at this date, this is what your benefits will be. But if you were disabled at this date, this is what your benefits will be. And it's higher. Disability benefits are higher than retirement benefits. And you're like, well, what happens when I reach full retirement age? Which, for people in my generation, and for most of the people watching this, it's going to be 67. The days of 65 being the full retirement age are over. It's now 67. All right, well, what happens at 67 if I'm getting, disability benefits? Do they go back down? Nope. If you're disabled, when you hit that magic age that you retire, it just morphs into that, but it stays at the same amount. They don't penalize you.
Yeah.
You're receiving disability benefits, but now you're 67, so it's retirement benefits, and so we're going to bring it back down. That doesn't happen. It'll stay at whatever the disability benefit would be. So many of the people who are wondering about this, and the question is always just hanging out there, is it in my best interest to draw disability if I'm close to retirement? Yes.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yes, it's a higher benefit amount. If it's $30 a month, and sometimes it is that low. If it's only $30 a month, is it worth? Yes, it's absolutely worth it. Now, you may not get a rep to take the case, but if you feel that you're disabled, I would always encourage you to apply that. And it's always like this, if you're receiving early retirement benefits and you apply for disability, the worst that they can do is say no.
Yep.
They're not going to cut your retirement benefits. You're still going to be that. You're just not going to get the extra money. But it's always in your best interest if you believe that you meet the criteria for disability, the income criteria, the medical criteria, that you've paid into the system. And of course, if you're receiving early retirement benefits, you probably paid into the system. It's definitely in your best interest to apply for it, because disability benefits are higher than retirement benefits, even early retirement benefits. I took them when I'm 63. If you found disabled at 63, your benefit's going to be higher.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's in your best interest.
Yeah, that's as far as the penalty amount goes. That's why I was pointing out the primary insurance amount at the beginning of this conversation. So you can think of that as 100% of what Social Security owes you when you either turn 67, because that's your full retirement,
right,
or you become disabled and you get approved for disability, SSDI. That would be 100% of what they owe you, basically, is what you can think of that. You work and you pay into the system, and then those are the ways to get 100% of that benefit. If you take early retirement, starting at 62, it's not 100%. At 62, it's 70%. And then every year after that, it starts working its way up. Okay. So if you take early retirement at 62, you only get 70% of what would be your full retirement, or what would be your SSDI amount. At 63, then it goes to 75, and then at 64, I think it goes to 80. And eventually it'll get to the point where if you're 66, you're 1 year off, it's really close. It's like 93%.
Right.
So how worth it is for you will largely depend on that.
On the age,
because you might be looking at a 30% reduction, which is substantial. You might be looking at a 6% reduction, which is not substantial. And the only real risk, and I try to make a point to not scare people with this. I'm just trying to be honest. There is when people are applying for disability for SSDI and they ask, should I apply for early retirement? If you apply for early retirement and you get approved for early retirement, say you're 62.
You're locked in.
if you worst case scenario, if they deny your SSDI case, it's not going to go up. A lot of people think that you take early retirement and then you get to full retirement and no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
If you take early retirement at 62, so you're getting 70% of your benefit,
That's your benefit.
it's not going up.
Right.
The only way it goes up is if you get approved for SSDI, because then it'll just go up to 100%. So that's the only kind of thing I would caution people about is, technically speaking, if you, worst case scenario, if we're taking your case and you're over 60, we're pretty confident we can win the case. But worst case scenario, if you get denied, you will be locked into that lower amount.
Yeah.
If you have a question about your disability case, give us a call at 615-453-9151 Monday through Friday, or click the link in the description of this video.